Hi everyone, and welcome to another session in our Greater Atlanta Virtual College Fair. We're super excited to have you all here. We have a wonderful set of panelists here to tell you a little bit more about life in Atlanta. But before we pass things off to them, I want to make sure that you know how to interact with them throughout the session. And so at the bottom of your screen, you'll see this Q&A icon. You'll want to click that and submit any questions that you have for our panelists through that feature. Note that your camera and microphone are turned off, and they'll be turned off for the whole session. So really that Q&A is the best way to interact with our panelists. I do want to make a quick plug for our future sessions that we have coming up. So make sure to check those out and sign up if any are interesting to you. And I want to note that this session is being recorded. And so if you need to circle back to any of this information a little bit later, we will be uploading a recording of this video and session a little bit later this week. So with that, we'll go ahead and pass things off to our panelists.
Thank you, Isabella, and welcome everyone to the Why Study in Atlanta panel this evening. We're glad you're here. We know these are challenging times in many different ways for how you're learning, where you're learning, and just know that we're here to support you and try to make this as normal an application season as we possibly can. You may be wondering too, why are different universities gathered together when they may all be interested in the same students, you and our audience tonight. And as you may know already, or you will learn as you travel through college and university, being collaborative, being in community, being a good neighbor, these are things that will take you through a well-lived life. And that is exactly why we're gathered tonight, because we are good neighbors scattered across our great city of Atlanta. And that's why we're together, as we always are. Atlanta is the focus tonight because we're all proud as institutions to call it home, and our students love living here and taking advantage of all that we offer. My name is Scott Allen, and I am from Emory University, as you can see on your screen. What we'll try to do tonight is use your time very well. We only have about 45 minutes, so we want to present a big overview of the city for about 20-25 minutes. And then turn it over to Q&A. So be thinking of all the questions you'll have. And we're going to touch sort of broad themes about Atlanta this evening, fun, sort of industry, culture, the opportunities of the city. And then hopefully you will have lots of questions of us. We won't get to them all, of course, as you've learned probably in other webinars this fall, but we'll get back to you, we'll email you. And of course, all of our institutions have tons of content online that run parallel to this. So again, welcome, glad you're here tonight. And I'm gonna ask each of my colleagues to introduce themselves. Emory, Tier 1 research university with liberal arts colleges in Atlanta and about 40 miles away in Oxford, Georgia. All sorts of majors, business school and nursing school beginning junior year. About 7,000 students call Emory home, undergraduates. Whitney?
Yeah, I'll go next. Hi, everyone. My name is Whitney. I'm the Dean of Admission and Financial Aid at Oglethorpe University. Some of you folks might have been in the Oglethorpe session right before this. So Oglethorpe is a small private liberal arts college, just about 15 minutes away from all of my colleagues here, right at the north end of Atlanta. And we are about 1,500 students, but I'm just gonna highlight a couple of really quick things that I love about Oglethorpe. So one, we are a super, super diverse school. So about 51% of our students identify as students of color. We have folks from all around the country and the world, over 30 states and 30 countries represented, folks from all across the socioeconomic spectrum, all across the political spectrum. So I love it because when you go to a small school, you're really not in a homogenous group. Another thing that I love about Oglethorpe is that we worked really hard to make a private education affordable. Over 90% of our students receive merit scholarships, which is really incredible. So we're really partners in the process trying to make sure that folks have access to a private small classroom experience. And then just a little bit about majors. I think it's a misconception that liberal arts schools means you have to study the humanities, the arts, right? We love humanities and arts students, but our most popular majors are business, biology, pre-health, psychology, theater. We have an awesome dual degree engineering program with Georgia Tech. So whatever you're interested in, you can study it. And I will turn it over to Latrina.
Thank you. Again, my name is Latrina Fisher, and I'm the Associate Director of Admission at Spelman College. We are an all-women's private institution. We are also the #1 HBCU for 14 years consecutively. We just got those numbers back 2 weeks ago, so woo, Spelman. We are located in the heart of Atlanta, about 5 minutes outside of downtown. We reside within a small community called the Atlanta University Consortium, which is the largest and oldest concentration of HBCUs in the nation. So along with Spelman College, we have Morehouse College right across the street, which are our brothers. And then we have Clark Atlanta University, which is a co-ed institution. And then Morehouse School of Medicine. So although Spelman has about 2,100 students or young women inside the gates, in the whole AUC, you have about 10,000 students. So women at Spelman have the best of both worlds in that they have a singular education experience, a small environment in which they can call home. But when that kind of they feel like they have outgrown that space or would like to explore further, they have that larger community to interact with. We offer about 34 different majors and minors on campus. We do also have a dual degree engineering program with Georgia Tech. You'll hear some similar programs throughout as we share, as we are all part of a consortium, which we share resources and courses. And it's my pleasure to be here with you all today.
Great, thanks. And I'm Mary Tipton-Woolley, Senior Associate Director at Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech is a public research university located in Midtown Atlanta, just literally down the street from Spelman and not too far away from Emory and Oglethorpe. Georgia Tech was founded in 1885 as an institution committed to developing leaders who advance technology and improve the human condition. We do that at the undergraduate level, teaching students in 36 majors that span from engineering and computer science to the liberal arts and sciences, design, and business. And again, we're nestled in Midtown Atlanta, but on a very traditional college campus. So right outside of our doorstep, students have access to the major business hub of Atlanta, but on campus, they feel like they're on a traditional college campus. So really kind of the best of an urban area and a traditional college campus. I think one thing we were going to talk a little bit about with Atlanta is where people are from. So the other folks may tell you as they go around, I'm reminding them to do that, but because people in Atlanta are not from Atlanta in many cases, and we're about to prove that to you. So I did grow up in the South, but I'm originally from Tennessee and have lived in Atlanta for 21 years, which I believe makes me as native as it gets in the metro area. So some of us like to say that's why the traffic's bad in Atlanta, because we all imported our terrible driving habits from our hometowns. Maybe that's true. I'm going to let the rest of our panelists tell you that as they're going through their section, but I'll be back with you in just a few minutes.
Thank you, Mary Tipton. Thank you, everyone. And I am a native Atlantan. I joke that I'm one of 5 left, but that's a good thing because cities that have great, this is true, all of you students who've had global history along the way in high school, you will know along the way, if you study it well, that cities that are either port cities historically, where commerce comes and goes, or cities completely destroyed by war, which Atlanta would be, destroyed in the Civil War. Cities like that tend to have a very different attitude and outlook because they had to rebuild or they've spent their histories learning from people from everywhere. They tend to have upward and outward outlooks on life and the future and possibilities. And so that's a good thing Atlanta has people from everywhere. It adds to our upward, outward, good outlook on things to come. And that's why these schools celebrate the city as we do, and our students do too. But what is Atlanta? In a very 35,000 feet kind of way, let's introduce some things about Atlanta before we break down into these themes about fun and culture and industry and opportunity. As Latrina pointed out, it's a college city. Not a town, but a college city. There are well over 40 colleges and universities in the metro, including the city. Over 250,000 college students. That's a lot of people, and it ranks in the top 10 of college towns by size in the United States. So students come from everywhere to be in this city, to learn and to live and to contribute. In the consortium arrangement we all have, you can take, it varies by school what the guidelines are, but you can take courses at other colleges to add to your curriculum at your home institution. Some people call this the city in a forest. It ranks in the top 3 with tree canopy in the United States among major cities. And it also has huge sustainability efforts as major cities go. So you could sort of say we're green and we're green all at one time. And for those who have flown into Atlanta, you know you land in green tree carpet as you come into this city. But Atlanta, for those who don't know a lot about it, of course, hosted the Olympics in 1996, a very special membership among cities around the world. So this Olympic city has an Olympic outlook, we think. It's a can-do kind of place where people get things done. As you know from your study of history, it was the crossroads of the Civil War. It was the cradle of our nation's civil rights movement, which continues today, but then led by our native son, the late Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And then many people today consider it a seat, a global seat of civil discourse, where people may not always agree, but they know how to sit at the table and talk and try to figure things out. So that all of these qualities have made Atlanta inclusive and progressive and young, though old by founding, young by attitude and outlook. Actually, the average age in Atlanta is about 35, which probably sounds ancient to an 18-year-old, but if you look at census data around the country, that's actually on the younger side of things, and it partly reflects, as we'll talk later, the kind of industries that come here, the kind of people who move here to contribute. It's a metro of about 6 million, hundreds of great neighborhoods link this big city and metro, extraordinarily diverse in every way you could define and measure that word. It is a welcoming place, and it is the #2 metro in America for net migration. People continue to move here. This city continues to grow. So that's sort of an overlook of Atlanta, the kind of place you might call home. And I'm going to pass now to my friend Latrina, who's going to chat a bit about what is the culture of this place.
Thank you. So I could go on and on about Atlanta and the space in which we live. There's so much to offer, but just really quick in a couple of different themes. So Atlanta is considered the center of culture within Georgia. In the last 2 decades, as Mr. Allen just touched on, is that we have a great mix of different ethnicities and ethnic backgrounds. And in the last 2 decades, we have seen a large migration of Korean, Chinese, Vietnamese, Hispanic, East Asian, Eastern European, and African communities growing and becoming more prominent. So when you come to Atlanta, you won't see just one type of person. You will find yourself in some aspect of this city. You'll find a place for you to call home. We have numerous museums within Atlanta, to mention the High Museum, the Fern Bank Museum, which actually the cool thing about them is they were the first to display the largest dinosaur, the world's largest dinosaur ever to be found. So if that kind of fits your fancy, you can explore that here in Atlanta. A personal know about Spelman and the AUC. We actually share a library, the Robert Wilson Library, and within that library, we actually have an extensive holding of unique materials on the African American experience, including the Tupac Shakur collection. So any Tupac fans there in the audience, you can come find out all about him and his background at our library. Food. We cannot talk about Atlanta without speaking about the cuisine. I'm not from Atlanta. I moved here from Chicago, Illinois, by way of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, land of dairy and cheese and cold weather. So I migrated on down south where the nice weather, well, it's kind of hot, but I don't mind it. Being from the frozen tundra. But one of the draws outside of the weather is definitely the food. In Atlanta, there's approximately 242 different neighborhoods. So just with that said, you'll find a variety of things to eat in those areas. And in Spelman's backyard, two of my favorite restaurants would be Busy Bee and Pascal's. They are historical, traditional restaurants that have been in Atlanta for decades. So that's a little bit about food. Also, Atlanta has a rich history, especially in civil rights. So you can find here the Martin Luther King National Historic Park, where you can go and see where he grew up. You can tour the church in which he grew up preaching, and then I'll go over to the National Center of Civil and Human Rights, where you can really just follow his legacy and all that he contributed to our society and world. We have, as mentioned before, the Centennial Olympic Park. We have the Chick-fil-A College Football Hall of Fame, CNN Studio, where you can tour. Well, no tours right now, but there's that. And one of my favorite places is the World of Coca-Cola. So being from out of town, that was one of my first places on my list to visit. And there you can taste Coca-Cola from all over the world, y'all, and learn about this one of the world's most famous beverages. So lots of things to experience in Atlanta. A great city where young and old really converge and make for a vibrant, diverse scene. So with that, I'll turn it over.
Awesome. Thanks, Latrina. So again, y'all, hi, I'm Whitney. I am from Southern California originally, and I went to school near Boston. And I moved down to Atlanta to go to grad school. And that was about 7 years ago. And to be perfectly honest, I was like, oh, we'll live in Atlanta for a year, and then we'll head out somewhere else. We'll go to Chicago, we'll go to San Francisco. And my husband and I completely fell in love with Atlanta, with no connections here at all. We did not know a single person in the city, and have made so many amazing friends, and truly really built a community here. And I think that really speaks to what Scott was saying in terms of Atlanta being a transplant city. There are so many folks who are trying to make a home here. And I think that makes people really friendly and really down to earth and really wanting to build community. And it's not like that everywhere, to be honest. So I think that's really, really special. Latrina made so many good points. Just a couple of things that I wanted to add. I was thinking about, when I was trying to choose a school, I wanted to go to an awesome school that I knew I was going to get a great education, get a great job. I also really wanted to go to a fun city and a place where I was going to be able to enjoy myself outside the classroom. And so Atlanta is really a place where you can kind of balance that. It's like work-life balance. So some things I was thinking about, as Latrina mentioned, Atlanta is really neighborhood centric, and there's a lot of community. And something I love is that you can't go like a week without there being a parade or a festival or like a wacky community event in these neighborhoods. So like up by Oglethorpe, there's the Cherry Blossom Festival, which literally like as the cherry trees are blooming, like you go and there's all these like great food and music and fun stuff. There's a chili cook-off that I love going to. There's a festival near Emory where folks, all these musicians gather and everybody plays music on their porches. And it's like this big outdoor walking concert. concert. We're now in the season of all the Halloween parades, and there's like 20 Halloween parades in Atlanta. So funny and silly and like a great way to get involved. As Latrina said, amazing food, amazing music in Atlanta. Like obviously hip hop culture is huge in Atlanta and really a heart of it, but whether you're into that or oldies or folk music, like there is really something for everyone and a ton of live music to see, which I think is really cool. And then as Scott mentioned, so much green space. Speaking as I will totally own my biases as a Californian and somebody who went to school in the Northeast, I was like, Atlanta, like, I don't know, I was imagining like a strip mall or like a parking lot or something. Like, I don't know what I was thinking. I had never visited here. And when I came, I was like, oh my gosh, it is beautiful. Like, it's a gorgeous city. And so whether you're into, walking outside or running or hiking, you can shoot the hooch, which is like floating down the river in inner tubes. Yeah, and so Scott's gonna pull up. Yeah, like, look at this, y'all. It's gorgeous. Not a strip mall, not a parking lot for sure. And I have totally changed my view, obviously. Yeah, it's a really, really just like fun stuff to do. But I'd love to ask my colleagues here. I just hit on a couple of points, but we are all kind of located in different neighborhoods. Are there things that Latrina and I didn't mention that that your students like to do for fun off campus? Maybe Mary Tipton, I think you were thinking of some things.
Yeah, I mean, our students being in Midtown, we have access to so much of the city. Actually, in that skyline view that Scott is showing you, it's a great shot. And just to ground you, when we talk about Midtown, the part that's the furthest to the left of your screen is downtown Atlanta. Oh, Scott's circling it with his pointer. That's so awesome. Thank you, Scott. The next little section with the very tall building and then kind of the blocky building, that's what we would consider Midtown Atlanta. And then as you continue moving up Peachtree Street, which if you didn't know this about Atlanta, there's, I forget how many streets that have the word Peachtree in them, but Peachtree Street is sort of the main drag through all of Atlanta. That next section is moving into the Buckhead area of Atlanta, which is traditionally sort of the financial district, though to be honest, those designations have shifted a lot in the time that I've lived here. So nestled in Midtown Atlanta, our students can actually walk to Centennial Olympic Park in about 5 minutes. They can get to Piedmont Park in a pretty short amount of time. The Atlanta Beltline is a really popular outdoor attraction for students on probably all of our campuses. It's a series of walking paths that are working to connect the city in a way we haven't been connected in decades by using old rail line. It's about a 22-mile loop around the center of Atlanta. Our students can get to a lot of our pro sports teams for fun and lots of concerts like Whitney was talking about. There's a lot of live music in Atlanta, great restaurants and shopping. We're all looking forward to a time when we are returning back to that sort of life as normal. But there's so many, there was a question in chat. This might be great as others are answering this question about there was a question about how easy it is to get around Atlanta. Atlanta is probably still a pretty, well, let me rephrase that. If you're talking about the metropolitan area of Atlanta, it's really a pretty car-centered place. But the metro area of Atlanta is over 20 counties. So that's a big area. If you're talking about in the center of a city, we have a train and bus system called MARTA. And I know for many of our campuses, you can get either directly or pretty easily from the airport right to our campus doorstep. Or like I said, maybe just a short bus or Uber ride away. So in that sense, I think for students coming from outside the city to Atlanta to get to many of our campuses, a lot of those are on our rapid transit system in Atlanta. Beyond that, I talked about the Beltline, but that is also connecting the city in a way that allows people to walk places they didn't before, to bike places that they didn't before. Most of our students don't have a car on campus and they still find it pretty easy to get around. So that's the experience of our students. And I know a lot of our campuses have bus and shuttle systems that run not just around our campuses, but also connect to other campuses in the metro area or into our rapid transit system or maybe to a shopping hub. I know a lot of us are doing things like that to help connect students around the city.
Very, very similar at Emory. Our students love to be all out and about the city. I thought too, since you can see my pointer, I might also show, so down here, downtown, the original part of Atlanta, just on the other side of these skyscrapers would be the AUC neighborhood where Spelman is found. If you come up here to the Bank of America Tower, right here, just behind those set of skyscrapers, you'll find Georgia Tech in Midtown. And then if you, my arrow will leave the screen as we head to Buckhead, where you'll find Oglethorpe. And then here in the Midtown area, sort of back through the neighborhoods, you'll find Emory. So we've got the whole place covered with just our 4 schools geographically. But students are, they get out and about. They take advantage of everything, as you would expect in a major city. Whitney, did you have more on that point, or is it time for me to move on to?
No, yeah, I'll turn it over to you, Scott.
Okay, fantastic. So as we think about the third theme with Atlanta, industry, what is going on here that would add, I mean, obviously there's a robust social life here, but what else is going on that would add to your academic and your intellectual opportunities? All the research and co-oping and interning that you might be doing while you're at any of our schools or one of the over 40 in the metro area. Some things to think about with Atlanta. We think about it all the time, as our students do, because they're out and about in internships, taking advantage of sort of the dynamic commercial life of this city. Atlanta is third for corporate headquarters, just behind Houston and New York City. This has long been a place of commerce where people come to invest, to contribute, to do things. Number 1, the busiest passenger airport in the world, servicing 150 destinations in the United States and over 50 countries. Flights from and to Atlanta. We are the number 9 metro in America for size, and many demographers also say Atlanta has loads of educated talent, not only in all of our colleges, but people who move here. Atlanta is consistently in the top 10 for where college graduates start their careers after college. And that adds to that age 34 or so average age I shared with you earlier. A lot of young people move here to take advantage. Atlanta is lucky to be in the number 1 state for business across not only Atlanta, but the whole state. It's the number 4 ranked metro for STEM professionals. And our friends at Georgia Tech have something to do with that, I am sure, but lots of investment in the STEM fields. And it's the 4th ranked metro for women in technology. As it is the number 1 metro and the number 1 state for Black-owned businesses in America, touching earlier on Latrina's point about diversity. It's also the number 1 metro for film production. A lot of people around America don't realize that Atlanta, depending on how you measure it, is almost equal to New York City and Los Angeles for television and film production. The largest studio sound stages outside of Los Angeles are right here in Atlanta. Pinewood Studios, the Tyler Perry Studios. These are all headquartered here and have added immensely to all of our students' programming who are interested in media, arts, film production, film business. But all of this to say, it's also a capital of global public health. Some of America's most prominent healthcare facilities are here in the city, including the Centers for Disease Control. It's also a huge nonprofit NGO town. The Carter Center, former President Jimmy Carter Center, is here in Atlanta, as well as the international relief organization CARE. So there's a lot going on across the industry landscape. And the opportunities embedded in that, Mary Tipton is going to touch on a bit. But I think back to my opening comments about who and what is this place called Atlanta. I think on the industry landscape front, we can confidently, we see it every year, we know it. Confidently, this is a place that's got lots of energy for ideas, innovation. It's a collaborative, entrepreneurial city. And as a matter of fact, as you research it more, you will learn lots of America's corporations, even global corporations, have put their innovation hubs here in Atlanta. So this is a place where ideas are welcome, questions are welcomed. Why? That's the art of an education. So we want you, if you come here, to take advantage not only of all of our great colleges, but this place you can call home called Atlanta. So I'm going to hand it over to Mary Tipton, and also remind all of our audience, we'll answer questions live in just a moment from the queue that's coming in. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. You all have had a lot of great questions coming in already. We tried to address a couple of them along the way. I feel like my role here is to maybe put a bit of a bow on what we've talked about as a group so far, and really talk about some of the opportunities your students may have while they're students here in Atlanta. They're certainly part of a large group. Atlanta is home to over 300,000 college students scattered across over 50 different institutions of higher learning. So Scott just mentioned this educated place that we are. That is absolutely true. We're not just educated, we're educating. And our educational institutions are a big part of the employment market in the city. Just to hit a few highlights, and some of these will probably be repeats that you've heard, but I think they bear repeating. When you think about cities, you often try to sort of peg them as what kind of city are they. Scott just touched on why Atlanta is such a diverse place. We kind of consider our key industry segments to be in the biosciences. Well, that makes a lot of sense when you think about institutions like all of ours in this session tonight and many of our other fellow institutions in the city. And then you think about agencies like the Center for Disease Control, some of those kinds of places. Atlanta is also a huge home for fintech. So that is a really emerging industry, and Atlanta has become really the hub for that. Also the Internet of Things, if you're into those kinds of things, Atlanta is a really big place for that. We're also a really big hub for logistics, which sounds really kind of boring, frankly, but is incredibly important. And, Scott just talked about the airport. If I could see you all right now, I'd tell you to raise your hand if you've ever been to the Atlanta airport. When I meet students and I talk with them, I always say, have you been to Atlanta? And it depends on where they're from, if they've been here before. And then I say, have you been to the Atlanta airport? And that usually gets a much larger raise of hands. I mean, I think there's a joke about getting to heaven to the Atlanta airport. But, that's true, because over 80% of the US population lives within a 2-hour flight from Atlanta or 2 days of drive time. And our airport has been the busiest in the world for 22 years. And the world's most efficient for 16 years, which is literally like the stat that made me laugh out loud the most, because I love the Atlanta airport. It's literally built in a straight line. You cannot get lost in that place. But people that aren't from here hate it. And I think it's because it's so dang busy. But I just think as a student coming from far away, that's really important to think about the ease of getting here and travel and taking some of that stress away. When we think about logistics, though, having that kind of an airport is incredibly important to that. So is having the largest and fastest growing container terminal in the United States. That's in Savannah. So we're talking about Atlanta today, but Atlanta is the hub of the economic Southeast, and Savannah is 4 hours away on our coast. And there, many of you are driving cars that may very well have come through the port of Savannah, not to mention all kinds of other goods. So logistics, UPS is headquartered in Atlanta, Home Depot, obviously Delta Airline. There's a lot of those kinds of things. A couple other things that I want to mention. Atlanta is a great place to do business. So for your students, what this means, and I think there was a question about this, but it's a place that people move to because the cost of living is reasonable compared to many of our peer metro areas around the country. We talked about the friendliness of the place, and it's because of the culture and the opportunities that people see in terms of starting their own business here. It's a really great place to start a business. There's huge investment in small business and startup enterprises in our city. You might be interested to know that Atlanta has been rated as the #1 tech hub, the #1 city for gaming. We're home to, Scott mentioned this, the corporate innovation centers. There are over 40 in Atlanta. Over about 1 in 4 of Atlanta's tech workers are Black. So we welcome diversity in these kinds of industries in a way that you don't see in other parts of the country. Let's see, I have a couple other things. So for students, Atlanta has been rated the #1 city for availability of internships. Well, when you have the amount of jobs and the workforce that we have in our city, it means there's going to be a lot of opportunities for you as students as well in the city. And so many of those are right outside our doorstep. I think that's what makes going to college in a city like Atlanta such a great opportunity for students, is on many of our campuses, our students can literally walk outside our campus gates or doors or sidewalks and, you know, be right in the center of things in the city. In addition to business and industry, we talked about the entertainment opportunities for students and opportunities in the entertainment industry. Didn't even talk about government agencies. Atlanta is home to city, county, our state government is located in Atlanta, not to mention many different federal agencies that have offices in Atlanta. So we have students, and I'm sure many of our other institutions in the city have students that intern at the state capitol every year during the legislative session for students who have an interest in those kinds of things. Just many opportunities for students in that sense. I'm hoping that the rest of the group will maybe play along for a minute and talk about some of the opportunities their students have had in terms of whether it's internships, co-ops, job opportunities, or maybe just opportunities when they've left your institutions here in the city of Atlanta. I'll turn it over to y'all for a minute.
Yeah, just really quickly, because I know that we want to get to questions, but one thing I was thinking about is like civic engagement and like co-curricular service learning, which I'm sure all of our institutions have, and how much I think that this is the best city to kind of engage in that material. Atlanta is really a home for social consciousness. And so if you're interested in not only getting a great education, but really tackling critical issues, gentrification, voter suppression, income inequality, looking at those issues from the lens of being a person who's living in that city and really unpacking that, I think all of our institutions provide a lot of opportunity to do that. I think that's really kind of special and unique.
One of my favorite stories of interning, Mary Tipton, it's been a few years ago. We had a student at Emory who did an internship at Delta, as you mentioned, headquartered here. And the great thing about interning or co-oping, you learn a lot about yourself and about industry, and you might learn enough to know you don't like what you thought you liked. And in his case, he decided aviation management was not his thing. It was a lovely internship, and I think he was disappointed that he then didn't like the industry. And I always thought, this is great. You've learned something about yourself and how you want to apply your skills. So it's not always about what you're about to step into as a career, but it's like everything in college, exploring why and why not on all the different choices you have.
Latrina, do you want to add anything?
Really quickly, because my 1-year-old is running amok. So I just, in the same vein of just social justice and civic engagement, many students who find themselves at Spelman find opportunities to engage in matters of the community and the state as a whole. We actually have a social justice fellows program, which is a learning cohort within our campus that where they have their own housing, so that's a perk. But really, they're at the front lines of digging into some of these social issues and trying to come up with ways to change them and to make this world better. So they're always at the Capitol. We send many of our students along with to meet up with alumni at in Washington. So if that is your jam, all of our institutions offer opportunities like that.
Great. Well, I think we just have a few minutes left together, so I'm thinking we should probably take questions.
Mary Tipton, I noticed two in the queue there. One is this being recorded. It is, so you can watch it on StriveScan later as you choose. And then we had a common theme among 3 questions about contact, and you can find all of our contact information on each of our web pages. All admission officers are listed on each of their schools' websites. So definitely contact us again. And then the third thing, we had a safety question. Is Atlanta safe for all of our colleges?
Yeah, I might jump in here and folks can tell me what you think. I always think about like Atlanta's a major city, right? So just like in Chicago or New York, like if you're walking down the street, like you want to be aware of your surroundings. And like I saw a question that was like, you know, for a young woman walking around in the city as a semi-young woman, I can tell you that I feel incredibly safe in Atlanta. And just like I would anywhere, you know, if I'm walking around at night, like, you know, I want to know where I'm going and, you know, have somebody that either I'm walking with or have somebody that I can call. But to be honest, I live in a neighborhood that I think historically folks would be like, oh, well, I don't know about that neighborhood. You know, I don't know how safe it is. And I am walking my dog, you know, at all hours, and I have met such lovely people. I feel entirely safe here. And I know that all of our institutions have really amazing, complex and safety networks on campus for sure. And a lot of folks have a lot of safety mechanisms to shuttle students back and forth between residence halls. So I know that a lot of our institutions are taking a lot of steps to ensure student safety, but just kind of in general, I think that, you know, it's a big city, but it's a safe and a friendly place.
The only thing I was going to add to that, I actually started typing an answer to this question and went, oops, we all need to chime in on this earlier. So I think that piece about neighborhood pride is actually a really great point about safety, because there really is a lot of that all over our city. The other point I was going to make is literally just left my brain. So I'm just going to stop talking for a minute. It's going to come back to me. Oh, yes, I know. So we are only representing 4 institutions, and we still represent 4 really different parts of the city and different environments in terms of, are you in more of a neighborhood feel, or like at Georgia Tech, a little closer to the literal city? I think you could be in Atlanta and have a lot of different experiences on many. So if you're more comfortable in an urban campus, Georgia State might be a great option for you. If you're looking for a much more residential, a little removed from the city, then maybe like Oxford College of Emory is a good option for you. So just a reminder that there's 54 institutions. And so safety is a bit of a relative question. It's relative to you and what you're seeking in your experience, and then relative to each of our own campuses, though I would echo every single thing that Whitney just said.
Go ahead, Scott.
No, you go ahead, Latrice.
Just one quick note, specific to Spelman, we are 100% gated community. So, so it's controlled entry on and off our campus. So being a institution of all women, safety is always at the forefront of our minds, and something that we take very seriously. So that is one feature that I usually share with parents and students who ask that question. That kind of helps them, bring down the angst about that.
I agree with all my colleagues on those assessments. I'm going to shift gears in the Q&A. We had questions about 2 things. Number 1, when will campus visits reopen? And we must encourage you to continue visiting all the websites, admission websites of schools in Atlanta. They'll all decide on their own what their visitation policies will be as we continue to meet the challenge of COVID-19. We want everyone to be safe where you are, and if you come see us, safety is job 1 right now. The other thing that was in the chat box is all the variety of residence halls we have and how you sort of pick and choose. And again, that varies by each institution, but each institution has different ways of living on its campus. So that's probably a real good institutional question. If there are certain schools in Atlanta you're interested in, because they're all different in that way. But luckily, all very residential, which adds to your community experience as a college student. Friends, are you seeing other questions in the box we should get to in the next minute or so that we have? To our audience, we get turned off very sharply at 6:45, as there are many other panels to go. Mary Tipton?
The only other thing that I noticed was the question about our students finding jobs and internships in Atlanta, which hopefully Scott and I really echoed that yes is the answer to that. But I think it's key, and there was a similar question about jobs after graduation. Again, yes, so many opportunities. I do have to say, if they want it, I mean, you won't be surprised to know that sometimes students want to go elsewhere for all different kinds of reasons. And I think our institutions and having the experience of being in a city also set students up well if they want to live abroad for a little while after they graduate, or if they want to live in another part of the US. So that's giving a quick answer to that, but I think we sort of cover that in our points earlier.
Before I jump in, is the final call, anything else you all have to share?
Come to Atlanta. It's a great place to be in school.
Jinx.
No, I agree. I actually feel like I learned a lot about Atlanta in this session as well. So a big thank you to all of our wonderful panelists for sharing their Atlanta wisdom, but also a big thank you to all of you for joining to learn a little bit as well. Just some quick housekeeping things before we wrap up. We will have a quick survey that will appear on your screen as soon as this session ends. And so if you don't mind taking just a few seconds to fill that out for us, it's always great to get a little bit of feedback. We really appreciate it. I do want to make a quick plug once again for our future sessions we have coming up. So feel free to sign up for those. And to answer the question once again, yes, this session was recorded and that recording will be available to you all within the next week. So we'll make sure you get that information as soon as we get this uploaded as well. But a big thank you to everyone, panelists and audience once again. And I hope that all of you have a wonderful rest of your day.